you could imagine an informal settlement looks like. This is a particularly big one, but this is a reality that most people in Mexico live in. And so we have about 1 million new homes in Mexico every year, and only 200,000 of those are built formally. That means 80%, up to 80%, are built somehow informally. Maybe not this informally, but somehow. So this was a challenge we're facing. And so we're talking about smart cities, and we're talking about technology, and we're talking about the opportunities that the future holds for people living in cities. We need to start where we are, and this is where we are. So we were tasked to work on a new model for planning and developing cities that could implement all the new technology and help people jump into the 21st century. But first, we need to address the basics. And so this is why we challenge everyone to revisit the concept of smart cities. What is a smart city? We often get lost in the trendy ideas, but in order for a city to be smart, it really needs to be a smart place to live in. So it's not just about technology. And so what I want to challenge you is to think of cities as part of a global market. So every city is competing to attract two things. It's competing to attract investment, and it's competing to attract talent. And it's not just attract them, but it's retain them. So we don't want to just make a city about tourism, which could work for some cities, but it's about retaining them. And so you can see it within your region, or you can see it in the whole country or in the world. Your city is fighting with other cities, neighboring cities, and the most talented students, the most talented entrepreneurs, the most talented artists, they flock to the city that they think is smartest to live in. And so what are they taking into account? And so that's one. Second thing that's happening is there's the digital revolution wave. And I call it a wave because in entrepreneurship, there's this idea that when a new industry that's going to change the world comes, it comes like a wave. And it destroys everything in its path, and it creates something more beautiful in the aftermath. But it's unavoidable, it's unstoppable. It happened with the agricultural revolution, it happened with the industrial revolution, and now it's happening with the digital revolution. And the problem that we are seeing in cities, and we saw it in the industrial age, we saw how some cities wanted to fight off cars, and some cities wanted to fight off all these new innovations. Some cities wanted to fight off internet. Some cities wanted to fight off email because their industry was telegraph. And so we see that this wave is coming, and you have two options as a city. You either ride it first, you ride it last, or you let it destroy you. And a lot of cities, politically, for political, social, or other issues, they try to just fight it off, and the aftermath is not a pretty sight. And so one of the things that this digital revolution is creating is the sharing economy. And it's interesting, we probably could not have predicted this. 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when the internet was booming, we still didn't know what it was. We might still not know what it was. And so this is an important lesson, because sharing economy is transforming the world, is transforming the economy. The way we trade, the way we live is very different from how we used to live 10 years ago. And we could not predict this. And so some things that are coming up with the sharing economy and with the digital revolution, for example, we see an idea, and I'll mention a couple really quickly. Smart hospitals, for example. And traditionally, with urban planning especially, we thought of the need to place schools and to place hospitals and how that was fundamental for neighborhood development and for city development. But now, with technology, it's not necessarily an issue, and this is just starting. But now you can actually contact a doctor without being in the actual infrastructure, unless it's something great, something difficult. But they can channel you after. So imagine how many people you can avoid having to be in a physical space. Same thing with schools. Now you have these systems with a collaborative homeschooling system where you can have homeschooling for 10, 15 kids, and you can put together 15 parents, and each one gets it once every 3 weeks with a very advanced program that gives them the whole syllabus, and the parent only acts as a coordinator, not as a teacher. So these are the possibilities, and these are especially important for poor countries where hospitals are not existent or where education is not very accessible. But then you also have the idea of 3D printing. And so I'm going to challenge you with a couple things here. 3D printing is also changing the way the world works and the way cities specifically work. Because soon we're going to start seeing in every city or in every neighborhood this one corner shop where instead of selling coffee or selling groceries, they're going to print stuff. And so you're going to walk in with your digital code of the product you want to print, and they're going to print it for you. That means that that product will not have to travel from China all the way through the borders, all the way through the highways, all the way through warehouses, all the way to your house. Imagine how different the economy will be when what's actually being shipped is the product, is the maybe the plastic or the material used for the printing, but not the big products, and so it changes the dynamic. And then you have driverless cars. This is going to change the world, and it's already happening. And I'm not talking about 20 years from now. These things are all already happening in innovation hubs. They're already starting in some of the most innovative cities. They're already trying it, and it's causing a lot of controversy, but it's going to change the world. And so what we have to think about is with these things, like one, how do you address zoning, for example, with 3D printing? If soon, even though you have a neighborhood factory now that's mass producing shoes and other materials, you're also probably going to see it in your own home. The way we have a printer and we print out our homework, well, within the next couple generations, we're going to be printing most of our basic materials for a household in our house. So our house is going to be a factory, and we're probably going to be putting that to work and selling stuff from our house. At least kids will, and kids are very, very forward thinking now. Watch out with these millennials and Generation C. They're understanding the potential of the digital era, and they're making very interesting business decisions when they're 12, when they're 13 already. So they're changing these. And so how do we address zoning when your house is a factory now? Your house is technically an industrial zone. And how do we address city planning in streets and public transportation when everyone's car is going to be circling around every day? So your car is going to drop you off at work, and then it's going to go on this system, and it's just going to start driving around. So no one will have their own car anymore, or they won't have to. Maybe if you want a luxury car, you want to travel to outskirts of the city, you're welcome to do it. But this will change public transportation. So in order for cities to be comfortable, to be enjoyable, to be sustainable, to be inclusive, considering that all these changes are happening, they're happening really fast, and we don't know how far they're going to go, and we don't know what else is going to come. What we figured is we needed to define a couple basic principles that needed to be in place for every city in order for the city to grow with these changes and grow positively. So we came up with a wordplay, and each for the word smart. And this is our definition of a smart city. So first one, self-regulation and self-financing. All public investments, all public infrastructure, all public services need to have a financial mechanism built in. The way we pay for our own data plans, so if we want to consume more data with our phones, if we want to talk more, we pay more. Cities have to have a very similar system. And now it's possible through technology. People can pay for whatever water they consume, whatever trash collection they consume. For all the traditional public services that were passed on to a general bill, they can now each one pay for it. And this will help make public services significantly better or easier to administer. And also self-regulation. So neighborhoods will be able to make decisions about their neighborhood much more comfortably. The next one is mobile and walkable. So we gotta be careful. Even though technology is orienting us into a more sharing economy, driverless car system, we still want to have enjoyable, walkable cities. And this is very important for inclusivity. This is very important for social interaction. This makes cities more beautiful. And so if we have driverless cars, now we don't need the parking lane. What are we going to do with that lane? Are we going to build another driving lane, or are we going to expand the sidewalk? And these are all issues we need to start asking ourselves. Second, accessible zoning. This includes two things. We need to consider that everyone's house can now evolve faster, because now we're doing business from our homes. We're selling things on eBay, we're selling things in the digital market, we're building things through 3D printing, and so how do you zone that? And so we need to create significantly more flexible regulations that allow for this entrepreneur to happen, but that also helps to keep the peace in neighborhoods, especially residential neighborhoods. And then an important one is resiliency. We need to be careful with rising waters and rising climates. We really need to plan cities for one specific thing, to protect where the water goes. And we forgot about that, especially Latin American cities. We forgot to plan the rivers, we forgot to plan the beaches, and so it rains a little more, and it's chaos, it's complete chaos. So we really need to start thinking about green infrastructures again, to protect these areas that will be affected by water. And finally, technology friendly. And so here we come to the technology part, to the smart cities idea that we often talk about, and all these technologies and all these revolutions. And so the question is it the government that needs to invest in technology and drive this forward into smart cities? Or is it the market? Is it entrepreneurs? Is it home-based entrepreneurs? And that's why the garage picture is really good. Because some of these most interesting, most revolutionary changes are being built by some kid in some garage, not by multi-billion-dollar investments, especially with public-private partnerships. And so the question is it the market or is it the public? And so with technology-friendly, what we're saying is maybe it's a little bit of both, but make sure your regulation allows the kid to try. Because when we overwhelm people with regulations, when we overwhelm markets, then we kill the incentive and we create this culture where kids stop trying. And so we really need to allow, and we don't know where it's going to take us, we need to be friendly about it, we need to support it. And so in Mexico, we're advocating for this. We created a bill that's now a federal law, and it's changing cities slowly. We're also working with the Friedrich Naumann Foundation with a couple cities. It's 7 cities around Central America, and we're trying to create pilot programs with some visionary mayors who are willing to implement some of these ideas in their own cities. And we're hoping to make a difference by setting an example. Right, well, thank you very much. That was my presentation.